Hey guys, quickie video today. We're going to do a cheap Amazon LED work light. I wanted to do this, actually, one second, I want to see if this is magnetic. I don't think it is, no. Um, I wanted to do this because I've kind of been picking a few of these up to actually send down to my sister in Florida. Having the hurricane this year, she kind of realized she was absolutely woefully unprepared and did ask me, knowing that I'm the flashlight guru, like, what do I need? So I'm actually sending her a couple of my higher end lights out of the collection, and I'm sending her a bunch of these lanterns too, inexpensive ones, pretty much throwaways, because just as that little extra firepower, you know, for things to run. And this is a kind of a cool one. Even though it's really cheap, it's a really good addition to your collection of lights. And these things are only like $7 on Amazon. They're sold under a million different names, but typically if you look up like COB work light, COB, because that's the kind of LED in this, you'll find these things under different names. They advertise them as like 2400 lumens, 2500 lumens. Not even close. This thing's maybe 300 or 400 lumens tops, but that's typical with cheap lanterns. So this one here, what makes this one wicked cool is that it runs off 18650s. And this one came with two really cheap, like Ultrafire 18650s, which I'm going to recycle because Ultrafires are literally a death trap, and if you use them, don't complain if your house burns down. They really are horrible. If you don't believe me, look at the videos on Amazon of people taking them apart. A lot of them are fake, counterfeit, and are outright dangerous. So I'm leaving it in here for demonstration purposes to show you that sometimes you're going to get these. Get rid of them, get good cells. Now I've tried this with both protected and unprotected 18650s. The Panasonic NCR 18650Bs are too big. They actually give me a little bit of a hard time. They will work, but they're very difficult to get in and out. So that is something to note. You're definitely going to want to use shorter batteries, but protected and unprotected both seem to work fine in this. And I would assume this has no protection whatsoever. So if you use unprotected, be sure not to overdrain them. Alright, it's a simple. It has, wait for that light to kind of readjust, a high and a low, your outer ring, which is more of a diffused, warmer tinted light, and then you have this. Now bear in mind guys, this red and blue flashing could be illegal in some areas. Some areas do have laws about red and blue flashing lights, so pay attention to that. You also see you have a battery indicator over here as well that runs while it's on. So simple operation, that's it. You know, cycle through. You can see, hopefully this will show you the difference a little better now that it's not directly showing. That's your high, your low. That's your outer ring. That's a little more, you can see that's a different tint. That's a warmer tint. A little more pleasant on the eyes. It's a little more diffused. Holy cow. Got a 1-year-old tearing the studio apart. A little better for maybe reading or things like that than your flasher. Other cool thing is it is USB rechargeable, and it also works as a power bank. So this thing is a really cool addition to my sister to send to her, because I'm going to send this along with some good batteries. I have some, I think there's some old Sanyos that are like 2700 milliamp hours. I really never use them, so I'm going to send her, I think I have 8 of them. I'm going to send those to her with this. So it will give her not only an okay flashlight, but it will give her a power bank and something she can charge via USB for light, and pretty decent. Now I tore this thing apart. I actually removed all the screws and tore it apart. I'm going to tell you about the insides, because these things are pretty notorious for being put together very hastily. So alright. So what I found is it actually has thick wiring. The wiring is actually pretty substantial. It's probably like, you know, like 18 gauge or so. It's actually pretty thick wiring. Normally you open these things up and the wiring is so thin you kind of worry it's just going to catch on fire, and you know, the minute you turn it on, but not too bad. There's a lot of electronics in here because you do have the battery tester, that LED, you know, and the various different LEDs. So the circuit board controller has a lot of wires, so there's a lot of wiring in there. Now you have what looks to be a plastic reflector in there, and the COB LED sits up against that. And behind that COB LED is a just a piece of aluminum that they're using as a heat sink that's held on with thermal epoxy. Now one upgrade you could do to this very quickly, very easily, is to open this up, remove that piece of aluminum, and replace it with something a little thicker. for example, maybe a heat sink for a CPU. You don't have a lot of clearance, maybe, you know, like a couple millimeters. So, but if you can find some heat sinks for a CPU or a graphics card for a computer, that might do a little better. I did take the heat sink off and touch the back of the LED while it's running. It does get pretty hot, and even the heat sink gets pretty hot. So one way you could definitely improve this would be to improve the heat sinking in the back. It's real easy to open. There's literally just 6 screws in the back that you pop it open. It's super easy, and there's no springs or anything that are going to pop loose. The LED is only held in place by friction. So that is one thing to note. So that LED will move around, just pop it back into place. And when you put it together, just kind of lay it down like this and put it back together. The only thing connecting the two halves, of course, are the batteries that go to the battery compartment. So you do have that. Just be careful you don't pull on it too hard. There's plenty of slack where you can actually pull this thing open like a book. Oh, we got a 1-year-old going for my stand here. So yeah, this is really not a bad little light for the money. I've got quite a few cheap lanterns. You know, over the years, guys, I've reviewed a lot of cheap gear, and this is one of the better as far as lumen output. Like I said, you're talking probably, 300 lumens, which is pretty decent. A lot of the lanterns out there really only put out like 100 or 200, and it does have decent modes. And I do like that it has, like I said, the 2 different LEDs. So you have this very kind of sharp, bright center one, the lower, but then you have that diffused warmer tint one. That's really handy to me. I really prefer having that kind of diffused light handy. But overall, guys, not a bad investment for the money as a backup, because you do have that functionality of lantern, power bank, and it's USB rechargeable. So you could pair this up very easily with a solar power folding solar panel, and this could be a very good thing for an emergency kit for hurricanes, tornadoes, things like that, to give you light for a long time. Plus it's very lightweight, easy to handle. Now, I wouldn't trust this to be hard use. If you drop this once, it's probably done. But overall, guys, it's really not terrible for the money. And if you are that kind of dork and you want to upgrade it a little bit, the heat sinking is very easy to slip in a little copper heat sink or something like there to help it out. But overall, the wiring's good. It doesn't need to be replaced. The electronics are special to this unit because of all the features, so you really couldn't... Well, you could rip it out and put your own electronics in there if you really wanted to go to that level, but I mean, with being it's a plastic reflector and all that, I wouldn't want to risk melting anything to really try and bump this thing up to like 600 or 700 lumens. But all in all, not terrible. Would I buy this again? Yes. In fact, I might buy a couple more to send to other relatives. My parents are down in Florida as well. I might send a couple of these to them to have, just in case something were to ever happen for them, because they don't have much in emergency supplies down there because they just moved down there. So, all right, guys, there it is.